Israel's Negev desert, once home to Abraham, the Ottomans, and a stretch of the Spice Road. Arid, unforgiving, and brutally bright. But that's not to say there's nothing new under the sun. Alongside a highway in the southern Negev sits the Arava Institute. Housed on a working kibbutz, it's a hothouse for solar energy innovation that could make its way to the United States. Among the technologies in the testing phase here, a solar panel field that sits on the water, designed to power coastal areas that don't have a lot of empty land. And this, a small solar array designed to better collect the sun's energy.
Each row of flat mirrors concentrates a primary concentration on one of those optical heads.
Yeah. Eyal Richter is the brains behind Verilight, a solar energy system that he says is especially efficient. One of Richter's brighter ideas was coming to the Arava Institute to put his product through its paces. Why test this on a kibbutz? Why here?
Well, here they have a very comfortable setting for new technologies. This is a validation center run by Capital Nature.
It's a bit of a lab.
Yeah,
high-tech lab.
Right. It's a high-tech lab for new renewable technologies.
A lab that focuses on the most ancient form of energy, the sun, a natural resource Israel has in abundance.
Everybody's been using the energy of the sun since Neanderthals. You know what I mean? So I think it's a very natural connection. They're palm trees. They need the sun to grow. We grow energy.
It's funny, when you're in Israel and you start talking about solar energy, it's amazing how many people can quote the Bible and give you references to the ability of the sun and the respect of any people, the Muslims, the Jews, the Christians, about the sun and with the power of the sun.
American David Rosenblatt is helping Israel realize its clean energy potential. His company, Arava Power, built a solar panel field in the Negev.
Israel has the best sun, has people living where that is, has transmission lines, and has available land.
You make it sound like a simple equation.
Yeah, well, it could be hard.
Israel does have a long history of solar power. Almost 90% of its homes have rooftop solar water heaters. But solar energy generates only about 1% of Israel's electricity, so it has to rely on imported fossil fuels for power.
If you look at the Arab states, they actually have a grid that they share among each other. So if a country doesn't produce enough power, they can get power from another country.
Israel has no backup.
Right, so like the United States, if New Jersey doesn't create enough power, then it goes with some of its neighbors and more power is provided to New Jersey. So that doesn't have to produce all of its power. In Israel, if it doesn't produce power, it goes black.
With that in mind, Israel's government just approved a plan to get 10% of the country's electricity from renewable sources by 2020. That's about the same total the U.S. gets today from renewables like solar and wind and hydropower and biomass. But in some ways, the U.S. is following Israel's lead in solar energy. A trip to the northern reaches of the Negev is a little like looking in the mirror, a preview of what's to come in the U.S. But the view is much better, way up there, almost 200 feet off the ground. The desert has a certain beauty to it, but I bet you've never seen anything quite like this. A little surprise for you. An entire field of concentrated solar panels, all pointing pretty much right at us. This solar thermal demonstration facility and all the 1,600 mirrors you see laid out before us, they belong to Bright Source Energy, an American company with deep ties to Israel. A company now building a much bigger version of this power plant in California's Mojave Desert, the biggest solar project under construction in the entire world, with the financial backing of Google, among others. Arnold Goldman is the founder of Bright Source.
We can only effectively work with his good, direct sunlight, excellent, I'd say, direct sunlight. So we have limited areas, but we work very, very effectively from those areas.
The Mojave isn't as sun-drenched as the Negev, but California does have more of another critical resource, land. Israel's only a little bit bigger than the state of New Jersey, and that lack of space could mean a conflict between energy security and national security. Yossi Inbar led Israel's environmental ministry for 2 years.
And some of this land, unfortunately, because we are in a war zone, I would say, we need to keep it for practicing. The Air Force needs to practice. And let's say solar panels and bombs don't come together.
But solar panels could be valuable weapons in a different battle, the fight against climate change. Do you think of climate change as a security threat?
The climate change is a security threat. If, for example, the delta of the Nile is now a big agriculture and feeding ground for the Egyptians, as an example, and if seawater will rise and there will be no land, no agriculture, no food, it starts to be our problem at the end of the day.
A geopolitical problem that David Rosenblatt says could mean an opportunity for clean energy cooperation.
So if you look over there at those trees,
All the date trees off in the distance, yeah.
so right beyond that, and I'm talking we could walk for 5 minutes and be there, is Jordan. We could literally hop across the border if we were allowed. That's Jordan. Why couldn't you just put panels there and run a wire?
And share the electricity?
Share the electricity.
And share an ancient reverence for the power of the sun.